I just finished watching the season finale from season one, and I have a lot of questions. The first question that I have is how in the heck did Victor live so long without having any food? Because he hasn't been around people for quite a while. I haven't seen him in like 2 or 3 episodes. So, what was Victor doing down there in that tunnel, and how did he survive? Next question I have is who is the voice that comes through the antenna when Jim is talking? He says to Jim, hello, anyone there? And then after he says that, he says, is this Jim? And then he warns him that Tabitha should not be digging. So who is that voice, and how does he know all of the stuff that's going on? How did he know that that was Jim? Lots of questions there. And last question that I have is why did Boyd see his wife and get attacked by spiders? What is that significant part of the story mean? Because I feel like after he got bit, he started acting very weird, and it's unusual that the town is able to replicate people from past lives. Like Abby is dead, so why do they keep showing somebody that looks like her? How are they able to do that? I kind of feel as though that they're in like an experimental TV show. It kind of reminds me of like they're like trying to do mind games on the people just to see how much they can take. And I feel like Boyd is the main character. And so they're trying to do everything they can to break him. And it just hasn't worked yet. So those are my questions that I have for this episode. It was a very good season one ending. And then also, why did a bus full of people come there? What? Like, that is crazy. They thought it was crazy when 2 cars came there. Victor's really going to trip when he finds out there's a whole busload of people that just came to town. Now, here's a recap of everything that happened during the season one finale. First, Jade figures out that even though the lights are not plugged into anything, they still have power to them. So what he decided to do was cut the wire so then he could put it inside the light bulb socket, screw the light bulb back on, and then all of a sudden, whatever is connected to that wire will then have power. I thought that was genius. So Jim and Jade asked the town members to go ahead and round up all of the lamps, and they are going to go ahead and make a huge battery that way. The clothing in this series, I think, is very important. And in this episode, Jade is wearing a cat t-shirt. And the only connection that I can think of is that curiosity killed a cat. So I thought that that was an interesting piece of information that they put in there kind of discreetly. Also, when he is inside Kenny's mom's house, he reflects on a story about losing his grandma. And when he was on the airplane coming back to America, this lady said, don't worry, because he didn't really want to leave France because he felt like he was leaving his grandma. And she said, they come with you wherever you go, referring to like when people pass on, they don't necessarily leave you, their spirit stays with you. Once they successfully got all of the lights connected and the battery working, Jim actually does get a signal. But I thought it was odd that once he got the signal, Tabitha decides to go home and continue to dig the hole. She said that it was plan B, but you would think that she would want to stay there just to see the outcome. So she goes home and continues to dig in the basement. And while she's doing that, Jim and Ethan are messing with the antenna, trying to get a signal out. And that is when a voice interrupts the signal and says, hello, anyone there? And Jim gets excited and he says, yes, help us. And the guy on the other end actually says, is this Jim? Which gave me all types of goosebumps, because how the heck does he know that it's Jim? And then he tells Jim, you better tell your wife, stop digging. And soon after that message comes in, Jim leaves. He runs for the hills back to his house. And during this time, Tabitha ends up falling into the basement underground, into like it's like a vertical tunnel, and she goes all the way underground. And when she gets underground, Victor is there. And Victor looks scary as hell. Like, he is looking crazier than all get out. I was thinking it was like the ghost of Victor. It didn't even look like him, but he said, "The boy in white told me you would come." Jim finally gets to the house. He just sees a huge hole in the floor. And I assume that he thinks that Tabitha has died, because typically people can't fall from such a great distance and still live. So he is definitely worried about Tabitha for sure. But that's how the episode ends with those characters. On the other side of Fromville, Boyd and Sarah are still trying to figure a way out. And in last episode, something pulled their tent, and then they heard like a weird noise, and then they seen a flashing light. Well, this episode, after it becomes daytime, they exit the tent, and they are surrounded by trees that are covered in spider webs. And as they're walking, Boyd and Sarah are having the conversation about Mr. Fish and Loaves and how the person knew that last night. And all of a sudden, Boyd hears a voice. And so he runs towards that voice. And then he comes across this massive tree. And the tree is covered in spider webs. And he hears the woman's voice, so he goes towards it. And all of a sudden, he sees his wife, Abby. And she is just covered in spider webs. And after he sees Abby, he like reaches for her. And all of a sudden, she like grabs him. And then he backs up, and then a whole ton of spiders out of the ground. And they're like all over him, and he's freaking out. And then they start biting him. And you can tell that after he gets bit, he changes his whole personality. He's very weak. He's also very tired. He tells Sarah just to go ahead and go without him, that he can't make it. And Sarah is very encouraging this entire time. She's like, "Come on, we're going to do this." She even takes the backpack that they had, and she starts carrying it. And as they are walking up the hill, they see a lighthouse. And the lighthouse is in the distance, but it is a lighthouse. And it starts pouring down raining. And so they're like freaking out, because they're just like worried that the rain, and it's getting dark, and they just don't know where they're at. And all of a sudden, the boy in white appears, and he tells Sarah to go to the faraway tree. And she talks Boyd into going, and she pushes Boyd in. And then Boyd ends up transporting from the forest to what looks like an enclosed chimney, along with Boyd and Sarah being in the woods, and Tabitha being in the basement, and the Colony House having this antenna. And there is a storm coming at Colony House, so they are concerned that the antenna that they just built is going to collapse after this storm. The episode ends, though, with a bus appearing. And the bus is, I assume, full of people, and it says Grand Rapids on it. And the interesting point about that is that Christy, in the beginning of the episode, tells Kenny that she barely made it out of Grand Rapids. But that is how season 1 ends, is a bus full of people come into the town. And if Victor thought it was crazy that 2 cars came in one day, boy, I'm sure he's really going to freak out when he figures out a whole bus full of people are there. So looking forward to watching season 2. Thanks for watching all of these with me. It's been fun going through and rewatching all of these. And I'm looking forward to finding any missing clues that I see in season 2 and in season 3. All right. Catch you later.